This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, May the 30th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's producing the Come On With It edition of the show. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So here we go. Playoff weekend at the World Para Hockey Championships. Of course, Liam Hickey, one of the standouts for Team Canada, get a chance to repeat. Of course, they open up in the quarters today against Czechia. I had a couple people ask me, why do I keep mentioning this particular tournament? Well, number one, we've got a kid from town who's playing for Team Canada again, get a chance to repeat. And I've had the opportunity to be on the ice with Liam a few times in the sledge, trying to see what it's like, how difficult it is. I can tell you right now, it's extremely difficult to navigate. But when you see players of Liam Hickey's international caliber, the speed and agility is mind-blowing. I can tell you right now, it is unreal how quick and agile they are on those particular hockey sleds. And here we go. For the third straight season, the Florida Panthers are in the Stanley Cup final. They lost to Vegas a few years ago, and now, of course, won last year. The rematch is in. And I would imagine this is exactly what the Oilers want. Another crack at the Florida Panthers. Lost in 7 games last year. If it goes 7 this year, though, the Oilers will have home ice. So that could be something to keep an eye on. I'm looking forward to the finals. All right. A quick baseball note. It was on this date, May the 30th, 1982, Cal Ripken Jr. began his streak of 2,632 games. You can put that one away. There was only 4 players in Major League Baseball played all 162 last year. Matt Olson comes to mind, first baseman for the Atlanta Braves. He played every game the last 3 years. And, of course, it was Roger Maris prior to Ripken breaking the streak. Gehrig. Gehrig at 2130, but then it's all the way back to third place. Everett Scott at 1307. Steve Garvey, former Dodger first baseman, at 1207. So the streak begins today. Oh, you know who they played that day when he started the streak? The Blue Jays. Jays beat them 6-0. All right, let's keep going. So it looks like, thankfully, the fire is moving away from Churchill Falls. And that's the good news. Jennifer Williams from Newfoundland Hydro talking about how perilous it got to the generating facility again this year, talking about having built the fire break and what have you. But something that gets lost in the shuffle here is Wabush. So just a recap of the 2024 wildfire season in Wabush. Lab West lost power stemming from the major forest fire, of course, at Churchill Falls. Lab City was able to avail a block of power from Hydro-Quebec through a transmission line coming from Fairmont. Wabush sat in the dark. They don't have that level of connectivity. They've been talking about that for years, if not decades, and no seemingly forward advancement to try to connect them with some backup power, like the community not that far away in Lab City, but thankfully it looks like that fire is not threatening the community of Churchill Falls today. Good news. And then sticking with it, there's a bit of a back and forth going here on the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. When it was first announced, it got a lot of headlines, a lot of attention, a lot of commentary. People on the pro and opposed side were writing opinion pieces, and then all of a sudden, because the news cycle happens very, very quickly, then it had a big lull in public conversation or public discourse. Now it's back out there. I guess mostly because Tony Wakeham, the official leader of the official opposition, was saying to pause negotiations. I hear others pick up on that point and say, when there's a drop-dead date of April of 2026, it's either pause or just stop. So a pause might not make a whole lot of sense here. Yes, there's things to be considered. The possibility, which has been discussed for decades. We had a guest on the show, one day earlier the week. The conversation to an energy corridor goes all the way back to Diefenbaker, 1961. Then Lester Pearson in the 70s cancelled the particular plan, looking more towards neighbours to the south for the flow of energy. So when asked about it, Premier Hogan says the pause is a bad idea. And we can get into it. The one point that gets left out quite often, and this brought forward by Jordan Brown and Jim Dinn, is just what it means for Lab West once again. It is no small component of this memorandum that the quadrupling of the Labrador recall block to over 1,100 megawatts is a big deal. Now, could that be negotiated as a standalone item? Not so sure, and I don't think anybody really knows. It's the same as the concept of, is it the best deal possible? The best deal possible, I think, will generally always boil back to opinion, because the negotiations over the course of 4 years obviously had a lot of complexities and moving parts, but anyway, you want to take it on, let's do it. All right. The vast majority of people that email me about Canada Post say it's time for Canada Post to go away. And I know why, because the numbers are out of control. Canada Post has now reported a $1.3 billion loss in operating expenses in 2024's annual report. Now, when you back out tax and accounting for divestments, the total loss is $841 million. That's more than $748 million loss reported in 2023, and in 2022, $548 million. Last time they made a profit was 2017. They've lost some $3.8 billion since 2018. All right. We know why. The competition is stiff. The number of letters that they deliver is down, or parcels they deliver is down, and the trend is clear as the nose, plain as the nose on your face. So now what? Canada Post, for the longest time, was a standalone, self-sufficient organization. It was only a couple of years ago that they had to reach out to the federal government, and they got $1 billion loan. That loan is obviously in jeopardy when the operating loss is some $1.3 billion just last year. So it does beg the question of what next? It's easy enough to say blow it up, but there has to be some thought given to the numbers of people and the number of communities in the country that don't have anything but Canada Post to deliver. So we can talk about the modernizing and maybe incorporating banking into the postal outlets across the country. Things to increase revenue and to make them more, I'll call it, relevant. So where to from here is a big question. The trends are unmistakable, and it doesn't look like there's a viable future as it's currently structured. People will point finger of blame, of course, at the union. The union will point a finger of blame at the administrators, the administrative bloat, and the mismanagement. So there's probably a little bit of truth to both sides. As usual, when we talk about collective bargaining, the relationship between executives and the worker bees. So let's talk about the Canada Post issue, but I think it's maybe oversimplifies to just blow it up a bit. And yes, the demands from the union on this front are pretty big. When you look at the operating expense losses just last year, 19% wage increase demand, and Canada Post has said, here's our most recent offer. It's a take it or leave it at this moment in time, which is easy enough to say, because what does that mean? So the uncertainty for business, the uncertainty for individuals, the take it or leave it. The last time there was a strike, it was 32 days. What happened? They got legislated back to work. Are we going right down that same path? During the 32-day strike, Canada Post said they suffered some $200 million in losses. I'm not picking a side here because I don't think this is as simple as some people pretend it is. But anyway, you want to take it on? Let's go. On that front, you talk about on the national stage, the one economy, not 13 splintered economies across the country. Again, complicated. One thing we know for sure, we can get into the energy corridor and the like if you're so inclined, but one thing that's got to be part of growing the country outside of the urban centres is some improvement in connectivity. Just look here in this province. The dead spots is frustrating, and it gives us the sense that we're paying for something that we don't receive on our cell phone bills, and it comes with a public safety concern. Of course it does. The province has gone to tender to try to cover some 10 different dead spots. Last year there was a pilot on the Burgeo Highway that seemed to work famously. So, where to from here? One thing that is a huge problem when it comes to things like cell phone and high-speed broadband is that the competition is really non-existent. The CRTC ruling on this front basically means that the big three can sell each other's access to each other. So when and if some of the smaller players, which have, crept into the market in some form, some people have found some good savings with some of the smaller competitors, but at some point, much like in the airline industry, then get priced out. So to build a real economy of scale that is not simply focused on the major urban centres, which of course population is flowing into the urban centres at a breakneck pace that we've never seen before. So connectivity is going to be a concern. Just think about the want for a smaller community, a smaller municipality, anywhere in the country that's trying to grow, to try to be more self-sustainable and trying to bring business to town. Business isn't going somewhere where they can't be connected. They're just not. You could have the most picturesque community in the entire world, and if a business can't set up shop with reliable cell phone coverage and reliable high-speed broadband, they're not coming. So the connectivity, there's some good stories out there about it, but first things first, CRTC rules need to be lightened up somewhat. All right, talk about competition. There was a speech given by the CEO of WestJet not that long ago talking about the comparative additional fees charged to airline customers in this country versus the United States. It was a bit of apple and oranges kind of stuff, but here's what he said. In Canada, sales tax, navigation fees, airport improvement fees, security fees adds up to about $133 in a round-trip ticket. South of the border adds up to about $49. So there's a big difference there. Now, is that the make or break difference in booking air travel? Probably not. But he goes on to say that the federal government should remove those fees, and they shouldn't have the airlines charge them. Boy, that's a pretty fundamental thing to say, but at some point, someone's paying the fees. You're still going to have airport improvement monies. You're still going to have sales taxes. You're still going to have security fees. So he's basically saying that the government should pick it up. Easy enough for an airline to say it, but we go on to talk about, once again, it's the competition world. For the longest while here, the need to have additional airlines not get priced out by the big two every time they come to pass, a lot of that has boiled back to how much foreign ownership is allowed for an airline to operate in the Canadian skies. I think they've moved it from 25 to 29%, but has that meant that anyone else is coming to town? We see the smaller pop-ups that do indeed provide cheaper fares, reduced service, but I think a lot of people, especially when we're talking about the short hauls, that it's price. We're price-sensitive people on every front. So WestJet and the airlines, I don't know. All right, let's get into healthcare. I'm not entirely sure what to make of this. Haven't had a whole lot of time to digest the announcement yesterday, or the unveiling of a 10-year human resources plan in healthcare. Phase number 1 talked about human resources, nurses, therapists, laboratory workers, and pharmacists. Phase 2 will be over the course of the spring about projections for 36 physician specialties. All right. 10 is a nice round number. You know, we have a 10-year implementation roadmap regarding the health accord. 10 fingers, 10 toes. So obviously having something that we can measure success against, and in this case over the course of 10 years, okay. The problem being, and as was spoken to by the president of the Registered Nurses Union, Yvette Coffey, is that some of the data that was used as input is outdated. She's talking about the fact that those years ago when we had a younger population, a healthier population, and some of the instances where you were admitted to hospital for a surgery, stayed in the hospital to recover, some of those procedures are now done in day surgery fashion. So Ms. Coffey says that it's going to miss the mark because we don't have modernized data. I think that's recognized in some form by the current Minister of Health Community Services, Crystalline Howell. Quote from her says, "This model is adaptable and dynamic, and as we have new measures to put in, we will get new outputs to come out." It kind of sounds like the starting point to me, because like everything else in this world, when we talk about algorithms, the key is the input, the accuracy of the input data. Because if it's not, then what do you think the output's going to be? Less than desirable, less than accurate, and I'm not entirely sure I completely understand this type of approach anyway. There's very much the immediacy of the need in a variety of disciplines, in a variety of healthcare professions, where we understand the numbers, whether it be nurses or doctors, and nurse practitioners, licensed practical nurses, social workers, pharmacists, therapists, clinicians. We see these stories. We hear these stories. So that's what they're moving towards. And again, can't give it any sort of big thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways quite yet, because I'm not even really entirely sure I understand the play. On that front, we are just over 4 years into a 5-year contract with an outfit called Change Healthcare Canada. This one happened and came out of nowhere. The government signed the contract, and of course opposition parties took them to task, as did the unions, because they were not involved. They didn't know what was going on until the ink was dried on the contract. It's $35 million. Change Healthcare Canada is an American company. They've got an office and or post office box in BC, which allows them to call themselves Change Healthcare Canada. But They're building software that involves healthcare scheduling, collaborating with health authorities, which of course there is now just one, to, quote, improve operational efficiency and anticipated cost savings, reducing staffing costs, overtime, sick time, payroll errors, and timekeeping labor. They were paid $3 million up front. Here's where it gets complicated, and I'm not really sure if there's a direct relationship with this 5-year contract, of which we're in the final year right now, and the 10-year staffing plan. But the contract was really secure for Change Healthcare Canada. If we did not adopt 95% of their recommendations, we had to pay them an additional $5 million in penalties. So I haven't heard one single update and how that's working from this government since the day it was signed. We should know more. Manitoba's experience was not great. They saw job losses. So when looking for efficiencies, and you know full well, there's plenty of waste inside every department of government, including healthcare. So it would be great to understand exactly where we are with that $35 million that could become $40 million if we don't achieve and implement 95% of their recommendations and put it out there for you. All right. I'm not big on the world of mandating a variety of things, but there's an interesting survey or poll out there, and you've heard me many times. I take the polls with a grain of salt. This is about whether or not there should be mandatory vaccinations for children, notably the MMR vaccine. So whether or not that should be mandated and proof of immunization before you're able to go to daycare or schools. Why? Because we've seen an unbelievable outbreak of measles. Vaccine hesitancy, I guess, coming through the pandemic, that hesitancy has grown. We are in the midst of the worst measles outbreak since the virus was declared eliminated back in 1998. Ontario, whopping big numbers. 1,938 people have gotten sick with the measles so far in 2025. Southern Alberta, big outbreak. Ontario, New Brunswick, there's already a requirement for proof of vaccination to go to school. There are exemptions available, medical, religious, philosophical, as long as you fill out a form. But Manitoba, 72 confirmed cases from a spike in May. Second Opinion Canada achieved measles elimination in 1998, and now it looks like we're on the verge of losing it. People don't trust the vaccines. I mean, the MMR vaccine is well understood and well documented as to how effective it is. The question people ask, well, you know, how severe are measles? Measles can be extremely dangerous. One of the most contagious viruses in the world. The biggest problem is for children who can't take the vaccine. When the measles are circulating, of course, the parents of that child, and that child, his or herself, would be extremely worried. So, look, the hesitancy issue regarding mRNA vaccines is one thing, but not giving your child the MMR vaccine, I'll leave it to you to add an adjective to that. But anyway, we should be talking about that. All right, a couple of quick ones. Natural resources, of course, big conversation in many parts of the country, including in this province. A real change in tune from this edition of a Liberal Parliament. So, on top of talking about reducing approval timeframes from 5 years to 2, some people think that it's necessary to abolish things, like, for instance, the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada. I don't know if industry cares what office it is, as long as the timelines are easy to understand and provide the regulatory certainty. On top of the reducing the time frame from 5 to 2 years, they're talking about 1 point of approval, and the legislation that's going to be tabled provides a more flexible regulatory framework for project approval. So it's an interesting, different language associated with this. Here's one of the quotes coming from a document that was provided or prepared by the Privy Council Office. Once a project is determined to be in the national interest, federal reviews will shift from whether to build those projects to how to best advance them. It streamlined multiple decision points for federal approval and minimized the risk of not securing project approval following extensive project work. It is different. That's vastly different than the approach that was given or taken or offered by the federal government under the Justin Trudeau's prime ministership. So what's that going to mean? And it'll be great next week. I think there's a meeting between the Prime Minister and the First Ministers across the country. On the heels of that meeting, we're told we'll get an idea about what type of projects will fall into this newly created envelope. It'll be fascinating to see. Of course, Albertans will be leaning in heavily on pipelines, and the rest of the country maybe not necessarily on that front. There will still be the required consultations with First Nations groups, still be environmental assessments that need to be done and comprehensively completed, but that is a really different tune being sung by the current federal Liberal choir. But if you want to take it on, we can do it. How are we doing on the phone, Dave? It's Early Childhood Educator Week, which is coming to an end today. Let's talk about it. It's now at the end of Mental Health Month, which is the month of May. And as you know, sometimes I understand why we have these awareness months and weeks. But on the mental health front, given what we see across the country, that has to be every month. Your thoughts? All right, I can't even read what I just got scribbled down here. Oh, I do want to give a shout out to Fergus O'Byrne, one of the very best musicians and entertainers in the province. He's taken on what they call Young Folk at the Hall 4 years. The concert this year is coming up on Sunday, June the 1st at 1 p.m. It's going to be at the Lantern on Barnes Road in St. John's. Tickets are only $10. Children 12 and under are free. And, of course, celebrating traditional music and songs. Fergus O'Byrne will be hosting and performing. And the biggest part of this, and it's presented by the Newfoundland Labrador Folk Art Society and Fergus O'Byrne, talking about preservation of tradition is not just about audiophiles. It's bringing young blood into the love of traditional music, in the love of creating traditional music. That's how you preserve it in best fashion. And so bravo to Fergus O'Byrne for what he's done over the years. And congratulations to all the participants in this year's edition of Young Folk at the Hall. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openon@vocm.com. Let's have a great show. That only happens when you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin the show on line number 1, top of the board. Good morning, Bob. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Paddy. I'm one of the officers with Southern Cross Sea Cadets located in Avondale, and I just want to let listeners know about a significant milestone that we have coming up. It's our 50th anniversary with the cadet program. Our unit started back in 74, 75, and so this is our 50th training year. So on Monday, June 2nd at Roncalli, we're having our 50th annual general review. And so we invite alumni in the Conception Bay Centre area, which I'm sure must number in the thousands, between Holyrood and Collier specifically. I invite them to come along and to attend. We're hoping to get things underway around 6 o'clock. We're going to start around 6:30, but if we could have people seated by 6, it would be great. And it's a significant milestone. It's a great youth program, the cadet program. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the cadet program, but, in my view, it's certainly one of the best programs in the country.
Someone sent me an email, curiously, Bob, one day last week, telling me it's the 75th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Sea Cadets nationally as well.
Yes, and I believe it's the 75th anniversary of Terra Nova Sea Cadets here in St. John's, so they're marking a big milestone as well. And Patty, just so your listeners know, the cadet program is a youth program. If I can put in a plug for the cadet program, Air, Army, or Sea, it's a youth program for ages 12 to 18. And the purpose is, to build confidence, develop leadership and life skills, foster citizenship, to help the youth, our youth become respectful, contributing members of their community. If kids, if it piques an interest in the Canadian Armed Forces, that's great. But the cadet program is certainly not a recruiting tool for the Canadian Armed Forces. We're not trying to make little toy soldiers out of anyone. It's just a fantastic youth program, and there's so much for the kids to do. And I always say, the best thing about the cadet program, it's free. It's funded by the Government of Canada through the Department of National Defence. And we have done so many things with our unit, Southern Cross. Southern Cross, by the way, it's named Southern Cross after the ship, the sealing vessel that was lost at sea in 1914. And many of those that were lost were from our area, the Conception Bay area. And as I say, there's so much that we've been doing over the past number of years, particularly the last couple of years. Excuse me. We've taken the kids just recently zip lining at Petty Harbor. We've taken them, whitewater rafting on the Exploits River. We visited the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier there a couple of months ago and visited the Crow's Nest Officers Club. Went to a Growlers hockey game on Military Appreciation Night, and there's so much more. And all of it is free. There was no charge for busing or meals or anything like that. And so other programs, which are great, but I know some things like hockey and figure skating and dance, they can be expensive. So for parents who are looking for a program that offers so much at no charge, really, the cadet program is certainly worth checking into.
How popular is it these days, Bob? When we were growing up, cadets was pretty popular, whether it be sea cadets or air cadets. How is it these days?
Well, our numbers are down since COVID, and that's true right across the province and across the country. I know before COVID struck at Southern Cross, we had roughly 60 cadets, and so numbers really plummeted for a few years. Right now, we have 16, but we have 16 kids who are showing up regularly and attending and participating. So things are on the upswing. And I also acknowledge, there is a lot of competition out there for time. So some of our cadets are involved in hockey and baseball and things like that, and that's understandable. But I just want to get the word out there that the cadet program does offer a lot at very minimum expense. There is no charge for uniforms. If you go to the Santa Claus parade and you lose your pair of gloves, you're issued another pair of gloves. There are no fees, no registration fees or anything like that. You might be asked to participate in a fundraiser every now and then, but other than that, it's a free program.
Building character, obviously, a critically important facet of being a member of the Cadet Corps. And, of course, it probably looks great on a resume. But just a fundamental question here. Like, I know if you're a graduate of the Air Cadets in Canada, you can get some flight training scholarships. Many cadets go to flight school for free. That value is about $20,000. Is there anything after the fact benefit beyond character building, which I just mentioned is critically important and maybe looks great on your CV? But the Air Cadet world has a next step that's financially very attractive. How about the Sea Cadets?
Well, in the cadet program, as you say, you correctly point out about the scholarships. We had a cadet at our unit just received word that she has received a national scholarship, and we have local scholarships as well. And, and employment opportunities. Last year, one of our cadets was working in Whitehorse, and we've had cadets in Ontario and cadets in New Brunswick. So the opportunities are there, for employment as well, to work as staff, as a staff cadet, as a senior cadet. And I know right now, for instance, I was reading a memo just yesterday that they're looking for some cadets to travel on the Coast Guard ship, the Henry Larson, for 3 or 4 weeks this summer. So there are so many opportunities out there. And as I say, if someone is interested in advancing and going on to the reserves, the primary reserves or the Canadian Armed Forces, the opportunities are there, and the cadet program certainly gives you a leg up, no doubt about it.
Bob, really appreciate your time for telling us about it here this morning. Congratulations, happy 50th anniversary for the Southern Cross Sea Cadets. If people want to contact you, Bob, what should they do?
Well, they could stop by at Roncalli. We also have a Facebook page. You just Google Southern Cross Sea Cadets alumni. The Alumni Association has a Facebook page as well. And Google Cadets Canada. Of anyone who's interested in joining, just a quick Google search will take you to an application form.
Appreciate your time.
We would love to.
Sir.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much, Patty. I really appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Bob. All right, there you go. It might be something of interest to youth in the area. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, plenty of show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Speaking more to the Executive Director at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. That's Nancy Reid. Good morning, Nancy. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Good Friday morning.
Good Friday morning to you.
Thank you. I really wanted to be able to reach out on the program this morning to, I guess, give a little update of where things are currently in our, our movement toward having a disability advocate in this province. As many of your listeners will know, there was a unanimous support for a private member's motion for the creation of the disability advocate position in the House of Assembly just before it closed. And certainly at the community level, we are thrilled to finally have achieved that and look forward to the next weeks and days and months, I'm sure, toward the creation of the disability advocate. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, I, with my board executive at the coalition, have been able to meet with the minister responsible, and that being Minister Korab, and we certainly expressed to him our expectations from the coalition perspective, as I've mentioned on radio in the past. We also, in that space, expressed to the minister the real understanding that there were a number of other community-based disability-related organizations under the network of disability organizations in our province who also have thoughts and would certainly need to be involved in conversations and in the planning of this office. And the minister welcomed any of those conversations and thoughts and invited me to start the process of making that happen. So this week, the network of disability organizations actually met, and we are in the process of providing the information to the minister responsible for what we see as the role of the disability advocate and what that person would do, what that office would be responsible for. So I really wanted... Sorry, go ahead.
So what are you suggesting? Because we can just say create the Office of the Disability Advocate, but that's only halfway to what we understand would be the role of. So what are you suggesting?
Well, I won't give everything because some of that information is still being pulled together from the network itself. But on the broad strokes, what we expect to see, the first piece, and I think we've already come to a conclusion that this office will be that of an independent office. There had been concern initially that the disability advocate would be associated with another existing advocacy role. We've been very clear and adamant that we must see the disability advocate as an independent office that answers to the House of Assembly, and not a direct line item with a minister, but in fact responds to the House of Assembly in a similar way as other advocates do in the province. In addition to that, we expect to see that the disability advocate would have a community, the individual themselves would have a community background, would be an individual who has been affiliated with community, coming from community, really having that understanding of persons with disabilities from a cross-disability, broad understanding of what disability looks like in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. We always talk about nothing about us without us in this community. And, it's been used and adopted by many. We mean that fully, and we believe that the position of the disability advocate must be that filled by a person who identifies from the community, a person who lives with disability, somebody who says, I am a person with disabilities. Again, we need to demonstrate that authenticity, the reality that a person knows the community and understands the barriers from a lived experience and sharing that with the community. Those are the broad strokes areas that we're most adamant about today, but there will be other moments in that conversation with the minister for sure. Today, I really wanted to be able to reach out to the broader audience and say that, our population, we know, represents some 30% of our population, are persons with disabilities. We want to ensure that everybody can be heard. And, we want to make this happen as quickly as possible. We don't want to have to wait for years for a disability advocate to come into force. We need this to happen as quickly as possible. I believe that we need to let people voice their concerns or voice their thoughts or opinions to the minister directly. And I reached out to the minister's office this morning to ensure that I had the correct information. And I'd like to be able to put that on the airways so that if people feel that they don't have a voice or if they're not affiliated with an organization, we want to be able to be sure that their voice can also be heard. So can I give that information out, Pat?
Sure you can.
Okay, so the phone number, it's going to connect you to Disability Policy Office within government. That is the place that will hold all the information and collect it and then bring it back to the minister responsible. That phone number is 888-729-6279. 888-729-6279. In addition to that, I have an email address, and that would be disabilitypolicy@gov.nl.ca. disabilitypolicy@gov.nl.ca. Or you can reach out to the minister directly, and the new name, the new acronym is a little different, but it's FAMA Minister, FAMA Minister, all one word, @gov.nl.ca. I really hope that people, if they feel that they have some reason, something to contribute, they'll find a way to do that. Many of our organizations in the province have far-reaching, have people all through the province who reach out to them, and I certainly welcome that at the coalition in the same way. But if you're not affiliated with an organization or don't feel like you want to do that, I certainly encourage people to reach out to the minister, to the minister's office, and really provide that feedback.
Nancy, I don't know if you want to or can answer this, but the number one question that pops up for me is what's government's hesitancy? I mean, they've kind of leaned into trying or kind of saying that they will indeed appoint a disabilities advocate, but I don't understand the hesitancy. If 1/3 of the population, and we do understand that disabilities come in many forms and fashion, why not have this position? Look, I'm not even really sure what the downside will be. Is it the worry or fear that they will have more advocacy reports coming at them, like from the Auditor General, the Child and Youth Advocate, or Susan Walsh, who's the Seniors Advocate? But that's a good thing. Advocating for people, because let's not pretend that everyone, especially elected officials, understands everything about what's happening in the community right in front of them. So we need these advocates. All the aforementioned Auditor General, add into the Citizens Representative, and all the rest of them. Do you have any inkling as to why they're so slow and dragging their feet on this one?
Yeah, no, I guess I don't. I can put on a skeptic hat and I can do all the things that I've done over the years, I suppose. I don't have a clear answer. I do believe, obviously, that the disability advocate is certainly very important to, again, 30% of our population. And when I say 30%, those are only the individuals who self-identify. We recognize that every person who self-identifies has a circle of family and friends who are impacted by the decisions that are made by an individual. So that number is actually greater than 30% when we think about the number of people impacted by disability. Patty, I don't know, if there's a fear by some historically, maybe, that an advocate would point out some of the things, and we hope that it will, but, some of the systemic barriers, some of the things that we're seeing that are going to really need to be addressed. We know that it's real, and I guess there's sometimes a fear of the expense associated with making those changes. I can make an argument for any of those expenses, but the basic argument comes down to, as a person with disabilities, I'm not just a stakeholder, I'm a rights holder, and I have the same rights as every other citizen of this province, of this country, to be able to access and enjoy the community, to be able to participate in programs and activities that are available to every other citizen. That is often denied persons with disabilities from all different aspects and different means. And I wonder sometimes if there has been reluctance by governments in the past as to the danger of what's going to need to be changed once this advocate is actually in place. I hope that we're beyond that today. I really believe that we're in a place where the disability advocate now, and again, having received this unanimous support in the House of Assembly, was just one of those moments that I'll always remember. We are going to have a disability advocate in this province. Right now, the onus is on us as community members to really ensure that government and us can work together to ensure that this advocate is actually representing the needs of our community and being heard and being able to respond to the things that need to get responded to.
I appreciate the time this morning, Nancy. Thanks for doing it. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. You as well, Patty.
Take good care. Bye-bye. That's Nancy Reid, Executive Director at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. A quick one before we get to the break. You know, we've heard plenty on the campaign trail from all the parties, including, of course, the Liberal minority government, on a variety of things, and we can get into whatever you think is important. But what we didn't hear a whole lot from the Liberals, and we heard plenty of it from the Conservatives, was about just how many people work in the public sector. Now, what the absolute sweet spot is for numbers, I'm not really sure, but we do have to look at what's happened since 2016. All right. So since 2016, there's been a net gain in the number of federal employees to just about 99,000, which is a pretty big number. Now, last year, the federal government did reduce its workforce by just about 9,800 employees, but still, that 99 net add is real. You'll hear some people refer to every single person working for the government as a highly paid paper pusher, which is unfortunate way to refer to anything. But anyway, average compensation, and this number comes from the Parliamentary Budget Office, which we lean on a lot here for good information. Sometimes they hit the sweet spot, sometimes they don't. When you add in pay, pension, and other perks, average compensation is about $125,000, or just a little bit more than $125,000. If public sector employees grew at the same rate as the population, then we'd be $7 billion in savings annually. So there's a variety of departments that really saw their numbers grow exponentially. There are 7 different departments and add in their agencies that more than doubled their number of employees since 2016. Some of them I understand, some of them not so much. Infrastructure Canada grew by 375%. Women and Gender Equity Canada grew by 334%. The RCMP External Review Committee grew over 225%. Elections Canada, 173%. Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada, 158%. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, 154%. The Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, 127%. The department that saw the greatest number of employees grow since 16, Employment and Social Development Canada. They added just over 16,800 employees since 2016, 75% increase. Canada Revenue Agency, the second greatest number of employees over the decade, added over 13,000 employees since 2016. It's a 33% increase. It really does make sense for the public sector growth to be commensurate with population growth. As more people are needing more services and more interaction with government, obviously there's going to be more people hired. But 99,000 people since 2016 as a net is something that I have not heard much from the government on. Now, we do see in the fact that there is no budget, which makes it very difficult to try to latch on to exactly how the spend is going to take place. But they have pledged to add a different layer of bureaucracy, and this time on housing. Obviously, housing has to be dealt with. Of course it does. But adding another layer, which is called Build Canada Homes, what's that going to cost, and how are we going to measure that success when compared to things like, for instance, the Housing Accelerator Fund? Haven't heard much in the way of detail in differentiating the two and how they're going to work differently. I know we're going to focus on tiny homes and modular homes and build up versus out, those types of generic references. But anyway, I'll just put that out there for your consideration. Let's take a break. When we come back, Sue's there to talk about the hospice in Grand Falls, Windsor. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Sue, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I just want to come on and want to promote the fundraiser that we're having in Roberts Arm tomorrow at the community center. It's for the Lionel Kinnell Hospice Center, and 4 ladies got together and decided to do a fundraiser for this wonderful place that they got in there.
What are you doing?
We're doing a hot turkey dinner tomorrow with eat-in or take-out. And we've got 100 and something orders already that pre-ordered, but we're prepared to do a lot more, of course. So anybody wants to come in, they can come and eat in. And if they got kids, we're even doing some fries and nuggets for the kids as well.
the amount of money that Lionel Calland Hospice was able to raise is remarkable. So I think just for the building itself, they raised over $880,000, I believe, which is outstanding. And it wasn't really very loud out there in the community with the fundraising efforts and the individuals and community groups and businesses. And I think the North Pine Foundation invested maybe $500,000, which is a huge amount of money. Sue, why are you taking this on, you and your friends?
Well, my daughter is an EMR, and she's had to transport patients to there. So she got a passion for it, and of course she drags her mama into it. And we've got two ladies, which is Jody Burton. She's a proud owner of the Mid-Island Fabrication in Triton, and her mom was there. And we have Warna Savory, and she's a teacher at the Green Bay South, and her mom was also there. So they both see the need that was there and really appreciated the help that they got and the love and support they got. And so I thought, well, we would, and we got a helper with us, Joni Noseworthy. Her husband was in there. So we know what the need is, and yeah, we just want to help.
And good for you for doing exactly that. So you've got the hot turkey dinner going. How much is a plate?
It's $12 a plate.
That's it?
And, of course, at the same time, they can make donations themselves right to the Hospice Center as well. There's going to be a representative here.
Amazing stuff. Good for you, Sue. So what do people have to do if they want to pre-order a meal, a supper?
They can call 709-650-0427 if they want to pre-order. They can just come in at 4 to 6 tomorrow, and we will be more than happy to serve them with a beautiful smiles, hopefully. Where
did you say it is again in Roberts Arm?
It's Roberts Arm Community Center.
That's Community Center, okay.
Yes.
Thanks very much for doing it, and good luck.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, and have a wonderful day.
The very same to you, Sue. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, so the government did indeed come up with some startup money. I can't remember, it's $2 or $3 million right off the bat. I do think they have had a yearly annual pledge of over $1 million for operating as well. Because remember, much like Daffodil Place, really effective fundraising to get the place built, but in the case of Daffodil, there wasn't fundraising initially to cover annual operating expenses, which is why they do things like, what do we call, sponsor a night at Daffodil Place? Can't remember. Alan Hocko, Greg Smith, and others. Brian O'Connell have been involved with it. So that's one thing. And the Lionel Calland Hospice, I've had people, I think we had the chair of the hospice on at one point into the past, and people will ask things about, what's the difference between hospice care and palliative care? Basically, in hospice care, they're just trying to offer you comfort near the end of your life, and they stop treating or trying to cure the illness. They'll manage symptoms to try to keep you comfortable. Palliative care, it can indeed obviously be end-of-life care, but they also can continue some treatments to try to cure illness, to try to, reduce the symptoms. So I guess that's the basic difference. So yeah, someone asked me that in the past, and I had no idea. I had to go look for it myself. Let's check in on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back after the 10 o'clock news, we'll be speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Well, I got a pretty snarky email during the newscast saying, how come we didn't talk about the Stephenville Airport today? Okay, here it goes. So there's lots of dismay and confusion in the community of Stephenville about the potential for Stephenville Airport to have its power disconnected. I'm not so sure why any snark is required on this front. Just think about it. The power is disconnected. That means it's over. The shutdown is complete. So that means any job associated with the Stephenville Regional Airport is gone. It also means that air ambulance flights cannot land in Stephenville. So I don't know why anyone would downplay the severity of that issue. And this is not about the Diamond Group's promises that they made about cargo drones and $500 million and thousands of jobs. It's not about that at all at this point, because I think we can pretty much forget that. But even if it's something as fundamental as air ambulance, I think that's worthy of conversation. I mean, the department obviously thinks so when they're talking about, road transport or using other airstrips, whether it be in Deer Lake or in the Conroy Valley, possibility to use helicopters. So, yeah, I understand the snark associated associated with it, because people are right when they say, right from the onset, it felt like this was an overpromise, and if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And so that's absolutely the case in Stephenville. But I think if we were going to be realistic about this, even if we shelve the Diamond Group conversation, still have to think about things like A, the jobs, and B, air ambulance access. Yes, we can use alternative airstrips, but every single time that someone has an emergency that goes out and first responders are dispatched, in this case medevac, time is important. So I don't know why anyone would think that that's not worthy of conversation. At some point, the provincial government is going to have to give this careful consideration. Whether or not we think that road transport is going to be the alternative, whether or not we think other airstrips in Codroy or Dare Lake are going to be meaningful and the very best we can do, versus the possibility for some negotiations with the provincial government to cover some outstanding balance to keep the lights on. I think that's probably a relatively important conversation. I'll leave it up to you to offer your thoughts. Another one that I saw in the news today, and there's still a lot of head scratching, and this is not questioning the results in the federal riding of Terranova the Peninsulas. Mr. Rowe has rightfully taken his seat. The Conservative candidate rightfully has taken his seat in the House of Commons. But the number of rejected ballots is something I've never seen before. So over 41,000 people voted in Terranova the Peninsulas after the judicial recount and the scrutineers that were in place. And nobody's questioned the results here. But of the over 41,000, 819 ballots were ultimately rejected, the majority of which people did not strike their X in the appropriate spot. So an Elections Canada ballot is different, and there's different rules associated with Elections Canada and federal elections and then provincial elections. The Elections Canada ballot is grey, right? There's white rectangles, and inside the rectangle is the party and the candidate. And then there's a circle where you have to strike your X. If you don't strike your X in that particular circle, then your vote is rejected. So many people, they struck their X inside the white rectangle, which is a clear indication of who you intended to vote for. But based on the law, and this is not up to the scrutineers, the law is clear. You have to vote and strike your X or your check mark in that circle. So there are signs in the polling stations about how to vote correctly, but it's probably worth offering to the poll employees or the poll workers or the returning officers that, and I'm not going to specify one age group or another, but even just that friendly reminder as you pass the voter the ballot is to be sure you strike your X inside this white circle. And you just point to it. It takes, an extra 5 seconds, because people take the time to vote. Voting is important. And for the votes, as many as 819 to get rejected because folks didn't strike their X in the right spot is probably something we can avoid. And maybe that's got to be training for the poll workers into the future, because that's way too many to be rejected. And Senator Fabian Manning is saying he's never seen the like, and I've never heard the like. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Doc. You're on the air.
Morning, Paddy. How are you on this beautiful summer morning?
Doing very well. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Pretty good, boy. Got to be good a day like today in particular, hey? I mean, we'll hit 20, maybe plus 20 plus, and nice sunny day, boy. It does a lot for the spirit.
You know what? There's a direct correlation between the weather and people's attitudes. There really truly is, no doubt about it.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Paddy, I've been following the West White Rose project, of course, down in Argentia for the past few years. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures of it recently as they're getting ready to float the base out to meet with the topside coming down from Houston. Have you seen any of those pictures?
I have. It's extraordinary.
Boy, aren't they absolutely amazing?
And so you're talking about the concrete gravity structure itself.
Yeah. You know, there's 250,000 tons of cement in that structure, and they're going to float that out. I mean, it's incredulous, the skill and the talent, the tradespeople, men and women of Newfoundland, Labrador, and the engineers and all the others. You look at that and you say to yourself, how in the name of God did they put that together? And now they're going to float it out and mate it with the topside coming down from Houston, which in itself is also another marvel, and start pumping oil. It's just incredible, and the talent that we have here in Newfoundland and Labrador when it comes to everything, including building structures like that. I have a son-in-law who works on that project and has worked on it for the last number of years. He doesn't say much about it, but I'm looking at the pictures of it here this morning, and of course he's out there now, and one of the two boats that are getting that ready to be floated out. And I was just looking at it and saying to myself, wow, can we or can we not here in this province, with the talent that we have, we can. We're the best builders in the world. Bar none.
The project lead, the engineer who was the project lead, is a townie, Mike Rodofsky.
Yeah,
Chris's brother.
That's right. Yeah. And it'll pump, again, and then you look at the benefit to the Newfoundland Labrador economy of having the oil flow. And I heard you talk to Rob Strong yesterday, I believe, or the day before, and Rob is really piped up and ready to go, and future of oil and gas in Newfoundland Labrador. We got a new government in Ottawa that seems to be less regimented when it comes to getting these projects up and running, and eliminating some of the red tape and some of the delays that it'd take 5 or 6 years before you could actually get a project going and get construction started and everything else. And so everything seems to be going our way, along with the talent that we have here. And I just wanted to pay tribute this morning to everybody who they're out there putting that together. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, for the last couple of years, and one of the things that me and Rob talked about was the CNLOPB annual land sales. In the last 2 years, 0 bids. And that's after not that many years ago, record for parcel sale, individual partner, parcel, record for annual sales. 8 new players came into the industry here, and it dried up in a hurry. Some people blamed it on the fact that the government and Oilco stopped their seismic work, but the industry doesn't agree. There's plenty of seismic out there to be considered. And this year, I think it's going to be fascinating to look at if there's any activity in those parcels off of Labrador. It is indeed.
I really think, Paddy, it was held back by the burdensome over-regulation of the industry. The Baden Nord is an example of. It went ahead. It's up to Equinor now to follow through, but the final approval finally came from Ottawa through Stephen Guilbeault, who wasn't a very happy camper about letting it go. He would just as soon have killed it as anything. And, it was that kind of attitude that sends a message to any developers, be it in any industry, including oil and gas. I mean, they're going to go where they are wanted, not where they're not wanted.
Well, all that being said, even with what we'll call the attitude or the position that the government had been taking, is we still saw exploration. The fact of the matter is the drills came up dry. Exxon went out there, they had no luck. The Sinopec, the Chinese oil company, they were out there, they had no luck. There is exploration planned for this summer, and we'll see if just a change in tune, timelines for approval from 5 years to 2. And there won't be any information about any projects in this province in the meetings next week, because there's nothing really on the table, unless people want to talk about, our relationship to a possible energy corridor or the fixed link or something, which I don't think is actually part of the considerations that will be discussed next week with the Prime Minister and the First Ministers. But I think we're going to learn a lot this year's annual land sales. I really do think we'll know for sure whether or not it was attitude of the feds and or the appetite of the industry to move even further afield. Because whether or not people agree, the further we go afield, the deeper the water is, it reduces the number of players that are willing to get in on that action. Not everyone is built for that type of exploration, and we still have a lot of unknowns, even when you talk about things like getting the crew out there, let alone Article 82 and everything else that's part of this. So I think there's going to be a lot to glean from this year's sales.
Yeah, I think so too, but I really believe that with this, it looks like changing a more positive attitude in Ottawa toward offshore Newfoundland Labrador. I think that sends a message too, and then on top of that, anybody who looks at what's happening down in Argentia and looks at the West White Rose project has to say, boy, in Newfoundland Labrador, they can build anything. We got a project, they can put it together. And that's why it's so important to make sure in any project that the job element is considered when the provincial government sits down and does any kind of deal or any kind of negotiation. We can do it here, made in Newfoundland and Labrador. It doesn't have to be done off island for the most part. I mean, there are some parts like the topside being built in Houston. Not everything could be done in Newfoundland and Labrador, but a hell of a lot of it can be. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and my understanding is the two proponents are trying to get either to lease or to take over full ownership of Bull Arm. Apparently there's some lobbying going on with the federal government at this moment in time, which I find to be a fascinating exercise because the province hasn't even committed to allowing either of the companies, Narl or DF Barnes, to actually take on a lease or full-time operations, but they're making a huge effort to try to be the proponent that comes out on top. So Bull Arm is part of this conversation as well.
Oh, definitely. Bull Arm is a key element in this whole picture of doing things made here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Appreciate the time, Doc. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, Paddy. Take care of yourself. Have a good weekend.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3 and say good morning to the Senior Director of Community Investment with End Homelessness St. John's. That's Simone Lilly. Good morning, Simone. You're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Paddy.
My pleasure.
So we're calling in just to talk a little bit about our Home Connect program, which is a private rental market program that we run here through End Homelessness St. John's. And today we're ringing in a bit of a milestone. We're celebrating 5 years of our program being in place, which is pretty massive for us because if you do the math, it means we launched it right in the middle of the pandemic when the housing crisis was just getting going.
How effective has it been? I know a couple of our property owners who have been involved. How many property owners or landlords do you have actually involved?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's been incredibly successful over the past 5 years. We've built up about 19 different landlords that we partner with. 15 community agencies are involved, and we've had over 220 tenancies throughout the last 5 years. So through this program, I think our total number of days of housing that we've been able to provide for individuals experiencing homelessness is over 95,000.
What does turnover look like? Because that's one of the things, people are precariously housed sometimes. How effective has this program been to limit the turnover?
Yeah, and thanks for asking it. It's one of our central pieces of this program. We really think about Home Connect as a program that goes beyond a lease and a key. We're really thinking about not just finding houses for folks, but how do we keep people housed? So we really track those stats quite closely and monitor the tenancies pretty close. So we've had some great success. Our current tenancies, for example, almost half of them are 6 months or longer. We've had a significant chunk, 25% that have been beyond the 1 year mark, which has been really great, and many that have kind of gone into now 2 years. So it's what we want to see. It's about kind of bringing folks out of shelter, out of experiences of homelessness, and providing them, a stable place. And we have support structures in place that once we have someone matched to a private rental market unit, we work with those 15 community agencies to do really regular check-ins, home visits with folks, and regular communication with our landlords to make sure that things are going okay.
A roof over your head is one thing, but also when we talk about a healthy, safe place to live is another. How does the program work here to ensure that the people you're placing in a one-bedroom unit is a reasonable place to live?
Yeah, thanks. So that's something that we've been trying to kind of lead in the community, actually. Every single one of our units, we do property inspections for ahead of the tenancy, and we're regularly in those properties. So at minimum, I'd say our staff are probably in those units once every 2 weeks, just checking on the properties and making sure that they're meeting health and safety standards. And we're also in a place to kind of work with our partners at the City of St. John's should they not meet those standards for whatever reason. And part of the program itself is actually making the repairs when they happen. So if damage occurs, we don't leave landlords on their own to face those damages. We'll step in there and provide some support, some financial support, as well as kind of some actual management of the repairs. to cover things, so you don't have kind of small things then become large issues.
Well, that's a pretty key feature if I'm a landlord, because in the private world, that's not a thing. Many landlords get left holding the bag on damages that sometimes could be extraordinarily costly. So I would imagine that's a nice feature and very attractive for a potential landlord. So celebrating a milestone, and congratulations on it. And this is not exactly about this program, but it's disheartening, I'll use that word, to see yet another tent city pop up. Let's talk about, not only the role of in-homelessness St. John's, but the role that you think the municipalities and or the province are playing or should be playing here, because the housing crisis is not just unique to this province. You can look right across the country, every single province experiencing similar housing crisis. But where are we coming up short? Is it simply about money? Is it simply about political and policy will, or what is it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit about all of it. Yeah, it always is disheartening to see encampments emerge, but what it's representing is that there's something lacking in the system, and that there's also system misalignments there. We don't have enough housing and enough types of housing to be able to meet the need, particularly for individuals who are struggling with all kinds of complex needs. So I think where we have to go is to kind of move beyond the jurisdictional hot potato of the housing, and have all parties come to the table and look at policy alignments, look at programs, and really make those strong efforts to put out the programs that are needed. And I think that does start with housing stock. Given Home Connect has been so successful in terms of the private rental market, we have to recognize that the private rental market isn't necessarily going to be a fit for everyone. We need to also have housing in place that is supported, at higher needs. We need to have housing that's in place with health needs involved, long-term care homes for vulnerable populations. There's really mix of housing that we have to slowly build in our community, or actually quite quickly build in our community, or we'll still see this crisis continue.
I'll offer this from my perspective. I won't make you say it. Look, we have these isms that people throw around. Whether or not they understand what the ism actually means, we use them all the time. Socialism, communism, Marxism, all these things. People view housing and the provision of government housing as some form of socialism, when in fact, if you're worried about your bottom line, we have very narrow windows we look through. People look at annual budgets and annual spends as opposed to what things mean in the longer term. Use 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want. Housing, or the lack of housing and homelessness, comes with a huge cost, not just morally or societally, but financially. So in places where they have different models, I use Helsinki all the time. What we do in this country, you become homeless, we put you in an emergency shelter, we find you temporary housing, and if you're lucky enough down the road, you get permanent housing with the required supports. In other parts of the world where they do a great job on homelessness, they start at the other end of the spectrum. They put you in permanent housing right away. And they've ended up, over the course of years, have saved enormous sums of money. So for people who talk about socialism being the provision of housing, you're going to be better off. If you're worried about your bottom line, if you're worried about your tax dollars, there's a savings to be had if we just changed our tune. Criminal justice, healthcare. The report from the University Teaching Hospital in Toronto is clear. 1,000 admissions, half of which were homeless, half of which were housed. It costs twice as much because they stay twice as long in hospital as homeless people because of chronic underlying conditions. It's the most expensive thing in this country is a night in the hospital. So let's just change the tune of the way we think about these things. If you're worried about your money, well, the current strategy does not work. It costs much more, and the crisis gets worse, and it grows every single month, every single year.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think homelessness absolutely is very expensive, and what it takes to not see us just flood money into emergency responses is to build out that system and then have that dedication to changing the system. And until we do that, it is just going to be kind of a drop in the bucket. So the investment where it makes the most sense is if we can build out our housing stock. And unfortunately, we got caught several years ago with the pandemic, where we were in a situation where a ton of factors led us to have this housing crisis just suddenly jump in our community, and we weren't ready for it. And now we're stuck scrambling, trying to build things really quickly. So the investment, focusing in on the housing that we need and building out that stock, at the same time shifting the systems that are sometimes working against each other, that's how we're going to see change. And then we can change our shelter system, and we can change these emergency response systems, which are quite costly, to be exactly what they should be in our community, which is an emergency response, just as you would see emergency settings in a healthcare system, but it should be limited to that. Whereas right now, it's kind of the solution we have. We have shelters in place, and then we have the private rental market, and we have some community housing, but not enough. That community housing has long wait lists, and all the other types of supportive housing or non-market housing, those have long wait lists too.
No doubt, Simone. Good to have you on the show, and happy celebrations of the success of the program, Home Connect.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate your time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Here we go. Simone Lilly is the Director of Community Investment at End Homelessness St. John's. Let's take a break. When we come back, we've got some good news to share. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this segment on line number 1. Mona, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
I had my Priscilla, my cat, and I'm very happy.
I just want to set the stage for folks. Mona had called, I think it's maybe as long ago as a couple of weeks, and her support cat Priscilla got out, and she lives up in Torbay Estates. I've had people send me emails almost every day wondering whether or not you got the cat back. And one lady has told us that she's been out looking for Priscilla many, many times in the past couple of weeks, and finally someone found her and brought her home. How did it happen?
A lovely young lady was putting in extra time, and she found her. She had her camera going one night, and she saw her on her camera, and the next morning she went out looking for her, and she found her in a deserted house nobody lived in, and she went in there, and there she was. I was so happy.
I bet you are, Mona. You know, it's one of the great fears I have is the dog getting out and running away. So I'm really pleased that this is the outcome. And for that young lady to take the extra time to eventually find Priscilla, bravo to her. Great stuff.
Yes, and a lot of people in Torbay Estates they're great people, and thank you, everyone. And I'm just happy.
I'm really glad to hear the joy in your voice, Mona, because anyone who owns a pet, especially when we're talking about a support pet that you really need and rely on, this is great news, and it brings a smile to my face, that's for sure.
Yeah, my Priscilla, I'm happy, and thank you for putting me on the air to try to find her. I appreciate it.
Well, you're most welcome, especially when it comes with these happy outcomes. Great stuff. Really pleased that you found your cat, or the cat was found, and I'm glad you called today, Mona. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a nice weekend.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye. There you go. I mean, that's great stuff. You know, every now and then someone will either say to me in public or send me a note saying, my God, the lost and found. Yeah, I mean, we're not built to be a lost and found show, but when someone like Mona loses Priscilla, and just because someone heard it on this show, in addition to wherever else they heard about it, the cat came back, I'll take it. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, John. You're on the air.
Good morning. How you doing?
Great today. How about you?
Not bad, I suppose. I was fishing yesterday, and I'm all aches and pains now. So
aches and pains from fishing?
Oh, yeah. I'm 78-year-old on my birthday, so I haven't seen my brother. He moved to Thompson, Manitoba about 40 years ago, so I decided I'd go up and visit him. So on May the 9th, I flew up to Winnipeg. I spent a whole hour in there looking for my luggage. That wasn't bad enough. So the next day we went to, that's a lie, we never went anywhere. But on May the 16th, I left to come home and left Winnipeg to go to Toronto. And when we arrived in Toronto, we missed the flight by about 5 minutes. They were pulling out when we got there. So they wouldn't wait for us. So then I got a flight from Toronto to Deer Lake. They put me up in the Crown Plaza up there. I had to pay a damage deposit, and I asked for some vouchers. The lady told me that I'd be getting vouchers, but I had to pay for my own food myself. So I got up 8 o'clock in the morning. Then I said, I'd go back to the hotel and I'll back to the airport, and I'd see if I could get a flight out or something, right? But they told me, no, your flight don't leave until tomorrow at 1950. So that was good enough. I seen a lady there at the checkout net. She gave me 2 vouchers, $15 each. So that's all I got out of it.
For 2 days worth of delay, a $15 voucher?
Yeah, 2 of them.
Oh, 2 of them. Okay, well, still, that's not that much better.
$30. So, I don't know. I won't be flying Air Canada anymore.
Yeah,
but that wasn't the worst.
What was the worst then?
The worst was, I found out Newfoundlanders got disrespectful people. I got on the flight and I sat down by the window seat, right? I think it was D. So it's all right. I'm sitting down there, and this fellow and his daughter come along. He looked at me and said, "You're in our seats." I said, "What?" "Yeah, my daughter got the window seat," he said. I said, "Well, as far as I know, that's what I paid for, was the window seat, and I got it." So it was all right. Foolish like, being gullible. I just moved up out of it and give him the seat. And that's how my trip turned out.
Was it actually your seat?
Yeah. He knows who he is. If I ever sees him again, I got my cane with me getting a beating.
Shocking for you.
Well, the flight up there cost me $1,200. And on the way back, I got back for $964. So, I don't know. If you don't make it in advance, it costs you a fortune.
Yeah. John, I'm sorry to hear it happen. It's all too common, some of these types of delays, but 2 days and $30 for the vouchers is not much in the way of compensation.
No way I can get at them.
Yeah, I suppose when it comes to you missed the flight, there's not even any sense filing a complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency, I don't think.
No?
I don't think so. I mean, don't take it from me if you feel like that's something you'd like to do, but the airlines, they'll simply say, well, you missed the flight. I mean, it's not their doing, and there's some truth to it, but still, 2 days is a long time to wait for actual passage out, with the extraordinary cost associated with flying anywhere in this country, which is another conversation. John, anything else before we say goodbye this morning?
Yes, homelessness.
Okay.
There's a simple solution to it, and I'll call you back later on in the week to tell you.
Let me know at your convenience.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. All the best.
Right, bye-bye.
And he mentions Thompson, Manitoba, which sparks me to think about this, is when we were building the facility at Long Harbour, they were still mining the nickel in Labrador, some of which was shipped out to Sudbury, and some was shipped out to Thompson, Manitoba. At the time, we were told that every spoonful, every ounce of nickel that got shipped out for processing in those 2 aforementioned towns would be shipped back. I'd like to have a status update there, because obviously it's a pretty precious commodity, and we've got world-class operations out in Long Harbour. And remember back when that was being built, that was the commitment made. Every ounce of nickel that goes to Thompson or to Sudbury would come back. And I think I asked Andrew Parsons about this, I don't know, a couple of years ago, whatever the number was, and he had referenced the fact that some of it had been shipped back, but I think now that we're fully up and running and have been for years at Long Harbour, we should see the return in full. I guess a manageable schedule that works for the smelter here is probably a better idea than just sending it all back in one fell swoop. But Thompson, Manitoba, when I hear that, makes me think of that particular concern. Before we get to the break, let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Walter. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you, sir?
Best kind. How about you?
I'm very good, thank you. Before I get to my quick little topic, can I have 10 seconds just to say how happy I am that lovely lady got her cat back?
Me too.
It's amazing how time after time after time, community will come together when someone loses their pet. And I think if someone has never had a pet, a dog, cat, ferret, rabbit, whatever, pets are sometimes the glue that sometimes keeps that family together. And we've always had pets and dogs and all that kind of stuff. And when they go, boy, it's an empty house. So I'm delighted that she got her cat back, and I just wanted to say that.
Well, and you're not alone, I would imagine, in thinking that. And I cannot tell people how many folks connect with me repeatedly asking about exactly that. So, and I would imagine most of them are pet owners, understanding the responsibility they have as one and the great joy and comfort and company that a pet brings as well. So I'm thrilled for her, absolutely.
Patty, you can have the worst day. I mean, you can have just nothing goes right from when you opened your eyes and you finally get home after work and you're like, nothing went right today. And then those eyes are looking up at you and it's like, okay, everything is good now.
Certainly everything's better.
Patty, absolutely. I just wanted to give a quick phone call. I'm quite humbled and very happy to say that I've been elected the new president of the Hub Physical Disability Service Centre on Mary Meeting Road, and I'm going to do my best for everybody involved. Tom Badcock, the executive director there, he does yeoman work. He's very busy today with helping some individuals. So I wanted to make this phone call. At the Hub, we're fortunate to have donated to us a high-quality electric wheelchair mobility device. So we'd love for somebody to take ownership of that free of charge. And we'd ask that nobody would accept it and then sell it or anything like that. You don't want to think the worst or anything, but we'd love for somebody to get it. It's a chair, it's an electric wheelchair that I think would be suitable for a youth, smaller adult. I sat into it to make certain it works perfectly, and we have the battery all charged up, ready to go. It's a little snug for me. So if anybody knows of a youth or anybody that would be able to use an electric wheelchair free of charge, someone who's between, gets maybe lost in the crack between government support or their insurance coverage, we'd be happy to donate that to them for as long as they want it.
Bravo, Walter. Thanks for letting us know about it, and congratulations on the appointment.
I appreciate it. Anybody who wants it, anybody who feels that they could use it for good reason, just call me, 743-1793, and we'll go through the little process.
Appreciate the time, Walter. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
See you, Patty. Bye-bye.
Very quickly, someone had asked me just a half hour ago or so, we do know that there are fire bans in different parts of the province, Labrador, Great Northern Peninsula, and this area. St. John's Regional Fire Department has implemented a fire ban until June 3rd when it will be reviewed. So that's every community inside their jurisdiction. That's St. John's Mount Pearl Paradise. So all open fires, including charcoal barbecues, fire pits, chimneys, all banned. The town of Torbay has also issued a fire ban. So, the weather's warming up, and we thought that, things were not quite as severe or risky here, but the St. John's Regional Fire Department begs to differ. So they've implemented that ban until the 3rd of June. No fire pits, no charcoal barbecues, no chimneys, all open fires, can't be added. Review coming on the 3rd. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Gerald, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
Your comment on the growth in the federal bureaucracy, you didn't mention fisheries.
Well, I don't know if there's been a growth in number of employees at the DFO. Is there?
Yes, there is. They've gone from something like 10,200 to 15,500. They've grown 50%. To put it in perspective, we have the small fisheries enterprises in the island, something like 1,500, and the DFO has 15,000 employees. So for every fishing enterprise, there's 10 federal bureaucrats.
I didn't really see that number.
I got those numbers from StatsCan. They're accurate.
Yeah, the report, I really do trust for the most part, the numbers that come from the Parliamentary Budget Office, because that's where I got that particular assessment. The report is a bit lengthy, so I only read as much as I could before the show this morning, so I appreciate the info.
That wasn't the main thrust of my call, really. I called you before and asked about getting the accountability with the DFO, to come on and give the rationale for this more holding back on the food fishery. apparently you're unsuccessful, were you?
Well, I can't make anybody come on the show. I can only invite them on the show. And as of yet, we don't have an appointment booked or a conversation booked, but it's absolutely on my radar because you're not alone. And I remember the call that we last had, Gerald. So I'm interested in getting that information. Plus, on top of the recreational food fishery, there's a laundry list of items in the commercial fishery as well that we need to get better understanding about what this minister thinks.
Yeah. Well, I read that where they haven't gotten back to you pretty well post haste immediately, as a sign of contempt on their part. There's something wrong here. Why you're not getting answers immediately, and it has to. This is accountability. They have to do it. But what about if they don't do it, Paddy? How long do we put up with this nonsense from them? They work for us. We don't work for them. Someone should get that in their head. And like I said before, we're demanding these answers. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the 1st of June. We're into good weather now. That regulation should not be complied with. If we have any sense of shame or who we are as Newfoundlanders, we would treat this with the contempt it deserves. This is what I see. This is intolerable.
I don't disagree. Now, I can't remember exactly what the reply said, but when they get back into the House of Commons, it becomes a little more difficult for us to get members on because I'm only on it, not from 9 to 12. So unless they accommodate my actual airtime, then I'm not sure what else we can do. We're actually going to try to have the Prime Minister on as soon as possible, too. Now, that's always a bit of a pipe dream sometimes, but...
A suggestion? I could make a suggestion. You could call, I think, the DFO regional director, I think his name is Ray Walsh, and ask him to comment.
The regional director of what? I'm sorry, Gerald? DFO?
DFO. They have a regional director here. I think his name is Ray Walsh.
Yeah, I don't know who that person is, and it doesn't matter if I know them or not. But yeah, look, I'm happy.
Whatever the name is, you know what I mean. Eh?
I'm just hoping to have someone with authority on. And the unfortunate reality also, Gerald, is it's far too common for a minister of whatever portfolio to really be where the buck stops on that person's desk, but the real intimate understanding of policy and strategy and exactly what's happening. Generally speaking, the ministers aren't the best voice. But the problem with that is that the nameless, faceless bureaucrats, which really do hold the vast majority of the information, the vast majority of the power, they wield the big stick in the department. It's virtually impossible to get them to speak. And in many cases, they're not allowed, which I think is one of the real shortcomings of government, is I want the decision makers. And yes, we can question ministers, but in large part, they're giving briefing notes and they are trying to be brought up to speed as best possible. But the people who hold all the knowledge and the policy decisions, they're those deputy ministers and assistant deputy ministers and parliamentary secretaries. So that's where I think we have a huge problem with trying to get effective communication with various levels of government.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. But Paddy, as an aside, I just made a note here with this. The difference with Nova Scotia being their season and ours, is that, as applies to the ordinary citizen, is that a charter violation?
Is what a charter violation? I'm sorry, Gerald?
The difference in treatment between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland for I'm talking with each individual citizen.
I honestly don't know how to answer that question.
I don't expect an answer. I just throw it out to somebody, that's all.
Well, we can add to it. I mean, I do know people who are very knowledgeable about the legalities of the different clauses inside the 1982 Charter, and I can get someone to actually offer me an answer there. If it was, I would be surprised if it hadn't been challenged on that front, because that is an extremely effective way to challenge any decision. If it doesn't line up with the Constitution, then it has to be aborted immediately.
Yeah, well, that's about all I have to say other than Paddy, as a matter, just for your listeners, I'm in my 90s, and I as a boy, young boy coming up to me, I was under a commission of government. I remember it clearly.
Okay.
And going back over Confederation, the time we went into Confederation until now, if I had my choice, I would go back to commissioner government.
Why?
Why? Yeah. Because we had so little government and we had so many active people. People went about their business. They hardly heard about government. We didn't hear it at all. Other than we had a handful of policemen. There were a few essential departments, natural resources or whatever. Other than that, people went about freely and lived their life quite happily.
Yeah, I could use, well, I'm not unhappy, but I could use a little bit more happiness. So do you think that's a cultural thing, or do you think it's also rooted in just how different we communicate these days? I mean, we're bombarded, television and radio and podcasts and the advent of the internet. There's just even knowing what's going on in other parts of the province and the country and the world. I think that's probably changed the way people think as well. What do you think? I
think that the proud independent people that we were going back pre-Confederation, that the welfare state, particularly over the last 40 years, has weakened us morally and physically. We're from one time we were independent. Now we have to look to the government to govern our every action. And there's lots of bureaucrats in there who would gladly take over control of your life or mine if I'm stupid enough and silly enough to allow it.
Yeah, I mean, I get in trouble all the time when I say government's not here to save your life, and they're not. Personal responsibility is not what it once was, I would suggest. I don't disagree in full with what you're saying, Gerald. It's a different world. Whether or not it's better or worse, I'll leave it up to the individual listener and hopeful caller. I appreciate you making time for the show again, Gerald. Stay in touch.
And thanks for your efforts, Paddy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir. All the best.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. All right, should I take Mike before we get to the break, Dave, or take Mike? Oh, break it is. Okay, Mike, you stay right there. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Mike. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Doing excellent. How about you?
Good.
Great.
Calling with a complaint about bulk cleanup.
Okay.
I've tried to make an appointment on the calendar on the computer, and no appointments available. So then I made a trip to the depot and was politely told you can't leave that here without an access card.
Where are you, Mike?
Bay Roberts.
Okay.
So what are people supposed to do?
It's a good question. I asked this of Sarah Studley the other day. She's not necessarily the right minister to ask, but she once was in that position. This whole bit about needing an access card or a permission email to go to the dump seems like completely unnecessary bureaucracy to me. Like, I don't even know what it's intended to do. So the unfortunate part, and we all know what happens here, is if people have to jump through even the minor hoop, they'll end up throwing it in the bloody woods. So,
well, exactly my point, yes.
Yeah.
So something has to be done. I don't know what, but I know years past, there'd be a cleanup week, you have your items out, and they're taken. And now you had to jump through hoops.
Is this because of the decisions made at the Eastern Regional Service Board, or is this a town decision? I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, 100%. I'm not sure, Paddy.
Yeah.
But well, once again, like you had pointed out, and my point, yes, people are going to end up throwing it in the woods.
Even if we had some basic understanding of why all of a sudden going to the dump requires anything more than showing up at the dump.
Exactly. I mean, people take the time to do it and the cost of gasoline, and then you're turned away at the gate.
Yeah, I can't understand it whatsoever. We will follow up with the government. I'm not sure if we sent along an email requesting someone to explain that to us, but it's worthy of an explanation. I mean, we talk about different levels of bureaucracy, red tape and otherwise, but yes, when we start adding to the conversation, I need permission to go to the dump, which is open and accepting business for someone who has an email saying they can, or an access card or an access code. I just have no earthly idea why that's the case.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for your time, and it's just that people need to inquire about it.
100%, and we'll get something. Now, I think the right place to go is to the Waste Management Division as opposed to government proper, because they would have made those decisions. So we'll see if we can't get someone to come on and help me understand the disability associated with not being able to go to the dump. It's mind-boggling sometimes.
100%. All right, sir, you have a good day.
You too, sir. All the best.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I mean, countless emails. And it's a really fair question. Why all of a sudden? I mean, the way we've dealt with waste management is kind of confusing to begin with. I mean, how many communities saw their landfill close? Some of which was industrial and commercial and actually made money, created revenue for the municipalities. They went away. And then even the concept of trucking garbage all over the province as opposed to the local. I mean, we had to do away with incinerators and stuff like that. I understand that part. But we're trucking garbage all over the place. And municipalities have lost revenue streams, and now all of a sudden I need an email or an access code to go to the dump in so many communities. I don't get it, but we'll try to figure it out. Let's go to line number one. Let's take more to the President of Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, just returning from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. I believe that's Amy Cody. Good morning, Amy. You're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty. I'm actually here in Ottawa. We're
you are?
day
Okay.
one, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What's going on? So I guess we start with the agenda. Now, every province will bring their own agenda item, but what's the focus at this year's conference?
Well, I guess the biggest thing that we're speaking about this week, of course, is the theme Stronger Together, Local Strength, National Prosperity. We all understand the different challenges that we're facing, unlike, at any other time in our history. So there's been a lot of conversation about how do we work together with all levels of government? How do we get the higher levels of government to understand, how important we are in solving the issues that we're facing. It's so important for us to be at this table. We have all levels of government, members of the federal government here with us this week that we're going to be having those conversations with. And of course, our National Prosperity Partnership is what's really being pushed here this week. And that partnership is all about funding infrastructure, building housing, and of course, the way that will trigger economic development and economic growth in our country.
I'm not going to call it platitudes from the feds, but talking about one economy, it's a little bit easier said than done. I mean, the internal trade barriers are very real, cost Canadian consumers billions of dollars a year, but then every province will stake their claim to a bunch of exemptions. I would imagine you're going to hear a lot of that during the conference. What's the perspective you're bringing representing municipalities here?
Well, I guess, we're talking about Newfoundland and Labrador. The challenges that we face are not different from those of the rest of the country, but we do have our own unique perspectives, our own needs and challenges, and how do we work with the provincial and federal government to answer those needs. Our membership works on the resolutions of our members. We have brought forth several resolutions on how we want to build and make Newfoundland and Labrador stronger. We talk about the wastewater effluent regulations and being able to have the transitional authority, allowing municipalities to train their own employees and purchase equipment to be able to do that monitoring on their own, making sure that they understand the challenges that presents and the financial challenges that presents to our communities is just one of the things that we talk about on a continual basis and are talking about here again this week.
Yeah, I'll add this to the agenda. I don't have the authority, but I'm going to do it anyway. So many of these issues and many things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis is the responsibility of your municipality. A little bit of civics is probably important for some folks out there. So much of this could be addressed if there was just an increase to the portion of federal taxes that go to municipalities. It's just a little bit over 10 cents of every federal tax dollar, a lot of it through the gas tax fund or what have you. But even if that was something fundamentally addressed by the feds, some of the municipalities' concerns would be dealt with right there.
Absolutely. We have been speaking about a new municipal growth framework for many, many years. It doesn't, when we talk about receiving a portion of the federal HST, a lot of people think that we're talking about a tax increase and how that will affect them. It's not an increase. It's taking a portion of what's already collected and allowing municipalities to be able to do the work that they need to do in their own communities. 1% would make a massive difference to municipal operating budgets and the revenue that we would have available to us, and would allow us to do the work that we need to do within our own communities without having someone dictate to us, here's the money that you're getting and here's what you're going to do with the money that we're giving you.
Yeah, especially since a lot of things that have been mandated to municipalities came from the federal government, and the federal government knows that their mandates are out of control, cost prohibitive for so many municipalities, even if we just look at wastewater standards.
Absolutely, yes, true.
Amy, anything else you'd like to tell us while you dig into day number 1 at the conference?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say I want to give a shout out to the new FCM board members, Mayor Danny Breen from the City of St. John's, Councillor Jim Locke from the City of Mount Pearl, and Councillor Larry Vaders from Paradise are going to sit on the FCM board for 2025-26. So we have a very strong voice at the national stage. I've been acclaimed to the VP at large role. That'll all be ratified now at our Sunday board meeting. Our CEO of M&L, Rob Nolan, is here this week. He's also been attending the provincial and territorial meetings earlier this week. So, you know, we're making the connections. We're doing the work, and we have a strong voice. Newfoundland and Labrador has very strong and capable voices at the FCM table, and we're just pleased to be able to represent our province. Congratulations
to you and the other members of municipal leadership that you just mentioned. Hopefully they have some impact on the national board. I appreciate your time, Amy. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you so much. Always appreciate the time to talk, Petty.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Amy Cody, M&L President and VP at Large at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Let's take a break. Bad news on the island of Belle Island for folks trying to gas up. The only gas station on Belle Island is now closed. It's been family run and operated since sometime in the 80s. They've been looking to sell. Apparently there's a buyer in the offings, but getting that deal closed seems to be a problem. Ambrose Rose, former mayor, wants to talk about that. Then Ken wants to talk about wind energy, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the former mayor over in Belle Island. That's Ambrose Rose. Ambrose, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy. How are you today, buddy?
Couldn't be better today. How about you?
I'm kind of drove mad at people ringing me. You know, I'm the ex-mayor, but there's no gas on Belle Island. It don't make sense to me why the place down there, there's no owner got a bath, and depending on the government, got it all hold up. Now we got fire trucks here, we got police cars, we got ambulance. You ought got to go to St. John's to get gas, and it's not right this day and age.
I don't know what the holdup is. I know that there's some sort of environmental assessment transfer that has to be executed. I have heard from, I think current mayor's Mayor Tobin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I heard him on the show saying that he's been every day talking to the member, which is Fred Hutton, and that they're close to getting this deal done. Apparently the buyer's just waiting for whatever provincial paperwork has to be concluded.
Exactly. That's what I was talking to the town manager this morning, and the government is all in the government's hand, and I don't know why, you know, we can't go without gas here on Belle Island, you know. It's shocking. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a couple of thousand people over. Has a ton of seniors inside that number of 2,000, and it just is pretty counterintuitive to have to drive to town or drive to the Cove via the ferry to get a drop of gas. You know, my question was, and I would have asked Mayor Tobin if I had the chances, does anybody know exactly why there needs to be an additional assessment? You know, I know you've got to ensure that the family that's leaving it behind hasn't left a big environmental mess behind that'll be inherited by the new buyer, but the new buyer would have done that due diligence themselves. So I don't really know what's taking so long, to be honest.
Well, the buyer, the man that owned it, there a couple of years, you put new gas tanks and everything down. Like, you know, I mean, it was all done and sealed. Now, Buddy decided to get out of the business, so this man popped up and bought the business and you know, by hoping the gas station, and then turned around, and now the government said they got the environmental study done.
Yeah.
That don't make sense to me what's going on, because you go to St. John's, there's every place, every district around there, with 4 or 5 gas stations. So I never heard tell this before. I know what they do is study, don't get me wrong. But why so long? There's 2,000 people that depend on that drop of gas to keep them going,
How long has it been closed?
There's 4 days now.
4 days, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the new bar is ready to get it open, to get it going, but according to the town manager told me it's all in the government's hand. What are they doing over sitting on the back end and trying to do something?
I have no idea.
We're not in the third world country on Bell We got 2,000 people over here, and then we're trying to survive. It's bad enough as it is.
Yeah, if Mayor Tobin is listening and has any type of timeline update, that'd be very helpful. So we'll give him a quick call and see if there's an update for the residents of Bell Island, because, we hear about communities and losing some amenities, but in this case, it's not that there's nobody to operate and to own and operate the station. They're standing there waiting. So let's see what I can find out. Yep.
Yes, thanks a million for your time, sir.
No problem, Ambrose.
And you can tell that tall bird if you were talking to the deputy mayor, the former mayor of Bell Island, Ambrose Rose. Because I'm poised with this, because this is ridiculous what they're doing to Bell Island.
Yeah, and I will see what I can find out, Ambrose. And one of my favourite sayings is on the sign, I think it's down by the Lions Club, got Steve Neary associated with it, but on the bottom it says, "Wabana, you're a corker."
Yes, and we are corkers too.
Yes, I know you are.
Okay, then, Paddy, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Ambrose. All the best.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye. I do think that's one of the great ones. Wabana, you're a corker. Let's go to line, you want me to go to 5? 5 it is. Good morning, John Hutton. You're on the air.
Hey, Paddy. How are you, buddy?
Top shelf. How about you?
Topper. A corker.
I love it.
It's fantastic. Listen, I'm calling about council's decision. I'm calling about those stop the road signs that are in the middle of the road that are just on the side of the road when they could be up on the sidewalk. What is up with that? You're always trying to swave around it, and then you end up in the other lane. It's a safety hazard, and all I got to do is just put them up on the sidewalk.
You know what the problem is there, though, John? It's an accessibility issue. I think there's actually a law that mandates where these signs are placed, and for the motoring public, we get to try to navigate, not scraping the side of our vehicle with the signs. They won't put them on the sidewalk for, whether it be someone in a wheelchair or otherwise. It's an accessibility issue.
I never heard that before, okay? Now that makes sense. But it is a pain in the ass.
Oh, look, I mean, they're all over the place. 'Tis the season, right? So there's a couple of notable spots where, if you're trying to just miss the sign so you don't scratch up your car, you can be very close, if not into the other lane. So they are a problem.
That is my point. Okay, accessibility rules.
Yep.
Okay, brother.
Thanks. Take care, John.
Cheers, buddy.
See you around, pal. Bye-bye. Yeah, that's pretty much the basics of that. Let's see here. Before we get to the news, let's go to line number 3 and say good morning to the chair of the Rec and Community Development at Participaction. That's Keith Fillier. Keith, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing excellent today, Keith. How about you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I don't know if you can sense the excitement in my voice. We're pretty excited out here in Clareville to be kicking something off this weekend on Sunday.
What's happening in Seaville?
We're going to be, we've decided this year to participate in the Participaction Community Challenge. It's a national competition. We're vying to be named the most active community in Canada.
This was on the go last year. Yeah, this was on the go last year as well, and I believe a community here, might even been Carbonear, I think won it.
The community that won it last year was Hay River in Northwest Territories.
Okay.
Carbonear might have placed in one of they won the top prize in Newfoundland. So actually, every year, two communities from each province and territory is up for an award. Will win an award. So if we're named one of the top 2 communities in Newfoundland, we will receive like a $15,000 prize.
So how does it actually work?
Carbonear, I guess, won that. Pardon me?
How does it actually work?
There's going to be what it is, the month of June, we're going to ask our residents, you have to have a Clarenville postal code. You have to go in and register. There's 2 ways to register during the month of June, as an individual or as an organization. So as an individual is pretty quick and dirty. You just go in and you pledge to be active in June. Boom, you're done. That's so the more people we can say register as individuals to be active, the better. But the biggest bang for our point buck would be for organizations, say service organizations, businesses, etc., to just join and register as a organization, and then you go ahead and you plan events throughout the month of June, and then you track the number of participants that attend each event. So we're encouraging as many organizations, say your Lions clubs, your Special Olympics groups, your golf, your little groups of people that go playing golf every day. Some of our seniors' homes we've contacted to get those activities registered. So if we can get groups and organizations involved, it'll help us in our goals to be named the most active community in the country.
Yeah, a bit of pride in community, and the second benefit is get people up and moving. Absolutely.
Well, actually, it's a great point, because that's what I probably should have led with. That's the number one benefit of all this, is to get people moving. Our logo or our mantra for this is "What's your move?" So that's what's going to be your move in the month of June. So that's how we're challenging our residents to ask themselves, what are you going to do to be active in June? And the number two benefit would be winning the prize. It'd be awesome if we could win $100,000 for a national competition. It'd be cool.
Absolutely right. So for folks in Clarenville, if you have a Clarenville-based postal code, you can participate. So whatever you're at, physically speaking, actively speaking, make sure you contribute to the contest. Maybe bring home a prize to your own town.
Yes. So one added thing, we're going to have a kickoff event at our Elizabeth Swan Park on the 1st of June. It's going to start at 2 o'clock. It's going to run 2 to 4 Sunday afternoon. Weather is looking like it's going to be nice and warm. There might be some showers, but we got a lot of fun events planned. Hoping to get the community out. There's going to be a guided hike, some dance fitness, some yoga. Our forestry department is going to be around with some tree planting and different things. We're going to have bouncy castles, so we're hoping to have a fun kickoff event Sunday afternoon, and some live music. Yeah, we got a lot of fun things. It's a free event. You don't have to pay to attend. Just come on and learn about how to be more active in the month of June.
Does dancing to the live music count?
Dancing is definitely counts towards points for our competition. Yeah, it's a great way to do it.
Fantastic. Keith, good luck to you and the residents out in Clarenville, and thanks for making time for the show.
Thanks for your help, Patty. Look forward to seeing you sometime in June, maybe in Clarenville.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There you go. A little bit of participation. Let's take a break for the news. Ken, you're next to talk wind energy. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Ken. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. First of all, thank you for allowing me on, and I hope you're excited about the weather.
I am, Ken. I think we have a bum phone line there, so we'll see if we can reorganize. He wants to talk about wind energy. A few things on the wind energy front. We know that other than Pattern Energy out at the Port of Argentia, all the other proposals, now there's only been one released from its environmental assessment, and that, of course, is World Energy GH2. But, of course, now we have the possibility with amendments to the Atlantic Accord for offshore wind to come to town. Prior to the amendments being made, we were told that there had been people kicking the tires to propose offshore wind for this province. Whether or not they think that we have a domestic use possibility, and or they've got some ideas about bringing it to bigger markets on the mainland or into the northeastern United States, I'm still a little bit confused about offshore wind and how it can be constructed with a business model that would make sense if we are not the market, because proximity to the turbines is a pretty big deal in the wind world. Let's see if we got Ken on a better line on 4. Ken, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning to you, sir.
I hope you're, first of all, I hope you're excited about the weather and barbecuing and stuff like that. Anyway, the reason I'm calling you is
just ask you a few questions about the wind industry or slated. It seems like it's dropped right out of the news cycle. Now, I'm over on the World Energy GH2 Facebook page, and the last real related post that they posted was November 15th in 2024. So it seems to have dropped right out of the news cycle. I'm just wondering, why are these slated projects still set to go, or what's going on?
Short answer is no, they're not set to go. World Energy has its environmental assessment released, so they're approved on that front. But the basics are, they don't have a market yet. The company itself has said they will not proceed with construction until they've secured, at bare minimum, a 10-year power purchase agreement, and notably, they're looking towards the Germans. They haven't been able to do it. Even when we talk about the government with MOUs with the Port of Rotterdam and the Port of Amsterdam for offloading infrastructure, it's simply not in place. So they don't have a market, and they don't have the ability for it to be offloaded on the other side, so that's why they're stalled.
Wow. And, I'm there was all kinds of protests, and people were in a panic. There were other people were looking forward to the economic, uptake or whatever, like jobs and such and stuff like that. And now it's I don't know. There seems to have been much to do about nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the concerns were real because a few things. It's the basics of the unknown here. There's only a couple of wind farms, and they're small scale, right? One up the southern shore, which is not very big. And when we even talk about scale, the turbines and the size of them, the magnitude of them is unlike anything we've ever seen here. So people had some baked-in concerns. One, it was new, and number two, it wasn't even for domestic use. So I think that was the basis of most of the concerns.
Okay, no, I said, I've been thinking about calling you for the last week or so, and I'm saying, why is this? Why are we not talking? Why is the news cycle not talking about this anymore? Is it gone? And thank you, you've just answered my question.
Well, I mean, just listen to the company. They kind of moved away from talking about green hydrogen to talking about building the wind turbines to power artificial intelligence data centers. So that speaks volumes to me.
Yeah, Patty, I've recently been in touch with some friends in Ontario that are following this very closely, and many of there's new projects being started right now. They're breaking ground. So, I'm just curious. And I know there's one going ahead in Manitoba, be it small, but things are happening in the wind industry across Canada, but it don't seem to be happening for Newfoundland. It looks like that's something that, whether you're worried about it or not, it don't look like it's something that's going to happen anytime soon in Newfoundland. And you've just answered my question.
Yeah, I guess more to come, but a lot of the proponents and even the Germans themselves, they're talking about still being bullish on this, but actions speak a lot louder than words.
Yes. Well, anyway, Patty, thank you. I was just wondering about this because I'm still curious about what if anything is coming or if it's not coming, and I think you've pretty much answered my question this morning, so I appreciate that. Who to go to if you want to find out what's happening or what's about to happen in Newfoundland, give Patty a call, boy.
I appreciate the kind words, Ken. Thanks for the call. Have a great weekend.
You as well, Patty. Enjoy that barbecue.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, I probably will strike up the queue tonight. Let's take our final break of the morning and the week. When we go back, the president of the FFAW is Dwan Street. She's in the queue to talk about, I think, the amount of unprocessed crab leaving the province. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the president at the FFAW. That's Dwan Street. Dwan, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy Daly.
Morning to you.
I feel like we talk every single Friday.
I'm not so sure we do, but there's always important conversations to be had. What's on your mind this morning?
Yeah, for sure. So, Patty, I just wanted to call in with a significant concern that we have. We started hearing rumors at the beginning of the crab season. Of course, the province did open up for outside buyers to come in to create some competition and finally offer some fair prices to harvesters for their product and hopefully force the cartel that we have here to start doing the same. But we started hearing rumors that there had been some side deals cut in the Maritimes. And those deals were, the ASP go to groups like the Nova Scotia Seafood Alliance and say, hey, if you don't come here and drive up the price of crab, then we'll make sure that there's crab going into your plants for production, because, of course, the quotas in the Gulf have been cut 33%, and the plants up there were hurting for crab. So we started hearing those rumors, but, of course, it's very hard to act on rumor more fact, right? So, we started doing a little bit of digging, and we had a call last week with our crab plant chairs in our unionized plants who had some concerns that production had been really slow. I mean, some of these plants are operating 2-3 days a week, where last year, for instance, they had 40 days of work with no day off. Plant workers concerned they're not going to get their hours, they're not going to get their EI. And, we started doing the math on what exactly was going on. Some of these plant workers were speaking with truck drivers saying, oh, yeah, like these companies are shipping crab out unprocessed and it's going to the Maritimes. So, again, keep your ear to the ground, listen, see what evidence you can come up with. Well, this week we were given the golden news, and companies like Quinlan Brothers and OCI, significant operations in this province with plant workers who depend on this work, and communities that depend on this revenue are shipping crab out. I have first-hand evidence, I've heard it myself, to Jimmy Kennedy, Edgar Sansom with Premier Seafoods, companies like McGraw Seafoods, and significant amounts of crab. So, I mean, these are companies, Fatty, that are the first ones to clutch their pearls and say, but what about the plant workers? Every single time the two words outside buyers come out of a harvester's mouth. We have heard it over the years, what great corporate citizens these companies are, everything they do for the communities. And to hear the amounts of crab that are going out, and we have another issue as well. I've requested the numbers from the province on how much crab has gone out unprocessed and the number of companies that have done it. And as they say, Patty, the math is not mathing. So there's something else going on there as well. So, even up as those last weekend, there were truckloads of crab going out while the plants were shut down and workers didn't have work. So, I guess two things here. I know we're crunched for time, and this is your last call of the day. We're calling on the provincial government to dig into this, to start holding these crooks accountable, to hold their feet to the fire, ask them what exactly is going on. And secondly, I want Jeff Loader to come on your show, either confirm or deny that this is going on. Now, if he's going to come on and deny it, I caution Mr. Loader very carefully to sit, long and carefully, think about what I might have in my back pocket and the source it came from. Because, when it comes directly from the horse's mouth and you've got hard evidence, stuff like this is going to be very, very hard to defend.
Couple of very fundamental questions. We know, even when there was such a thing as minimum processing requirements in this province, which went away given our arrangement with the European Union, with CETA, and even prior to that, there were plenty of exemptions granted frequently, if not repeatedly, especially for some smaller product like redfish or what have you. Have any of these been approved exemptions by the province, or is this the processing sector taking matters into their own hands alone?
Oh, this is simple collusion. I mean, exactly what is happening here is members of ASP, namely Quinlan Brothers and OCI, maybe others, but these are the two that I had the first-hand evidence on, going to the Maritimes and saying, hey, if you don't come down here and start paying, we're hearing prices in the Maritimes of $7-8 a pound for crab. If you agree to not come down here and pay harvesters that, we'll make sure that there's crab pumping through your plants and your operations are going smoothly. They don't care about the plant workers that are here. They don't care about the temporary foreign workers that they've brought over here that are, piled in houses waiting for hours, and they're just not getting them. I mean, it's clear what's going on. They're stifling competition. They're stifling prices, and they're putting plant workers at risk. I mean, if I had to hear one of these companies, these bleeding heart companies, one more time say, what about the plant workers, when most of these plant workers are going to be painting fences trying to get their hours for EI this year, it's just completely unacceptable. So Mr. Loader needs to come on. He needs to defend this, and he needs to tell us exactly why this product is being shipped out and funneled through these maritime companies when companies here can provide good paying jobs and good hours to plant workers here in Newfoundland and Labrador. I mean, shouldn't a company be taking care of its workers? Shouldn't it be concerned about its communities? That's all we hear. I mean, OCI was just given a Turning the Tide Award for what great corporate citizens they are. I mean, this should be enough to have that award revoked, but I doubt that's going to happen since Robin Quinlan's on the selection committee. I mean, it's just, we know what we're dealing with here. And this behavior and what has been happening here, I mean, since my grandfather's days, needs to be called out, and the government needs to clean it up. Because when we look at what's happening in the Maritimes compared to what's happening here, it's absolute ridiculousness, Patty. Like, plant workers and harvesters are under the thumb of these companies, and it's about time that we all work together and get them out.
Okay, so a suggestion that Mr. Loader come on this program. The only way it's going to work necessarily for me is, as opposed to trying to say what you have, is if I had information as well, which I would keep confidential. Are you willing to supply me with what you have so that I can ask direct questions of Mr. Loader? Because I'm in an awkward spot of not really knowing exactly what's going on, other than the assertion that there's unprocessed crab leaving and the assertions of collusion. So can you provide me with additional information? Because I'll invite Mr. Loader on, no problem.
Oh, I most certainly can.
Okay. That'll be helpful, because I think you get my point. For me to just try to summarize or paraphrase what you said without having anything to back it up, when the answer might not be what we anticipate or expect, or what you would expect, better said.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's fair ball, and I think you'll be quite interested to have a listen.
I'm happy to do it. So I think you have my personal email address as well, because what I will admit to the listeners, when I leave here at 12 o'clock on Friday, I do not dare open my work email over the course of the weekend. So if you could send me my private address, my personal address, that would be most helpful. I'll take a look over the weekend.
Oh, I sure will.
Thank you for your time, Duan.
Just one thing, Patty,
sure.
if I could before we leave.
Yeah.
Just, a general tip to your listeners. If you're taking a break on a Zoom call and you're going to be discussing your shady business dealings, maybe make sure your mic is on mute.
Thank you, Duan.
Thanks, Patty.
Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah, there's been some awkward interactions over Zoom, whether it be with some nudity or the like. Anyway, strange stuff. Just a quick update. We spoke with Walter Harding earlier. He's working with the Hub these days, and he called about the fact that they have a really new-to-you electric wheelchair that is probably best suited for youth. And luckily enough, as a result of the call, that wheelchair is going to be under the bum of a 19-year-old who desperately needs it. So that's a terrific update. In addition to that, some good news, and a little bit of good news goes a long way. Takeaway for a bit of good news for me today is the fact that Mona, poor woman who called a couple of weeks ago about her support cat getting away, Priscilla, doesn't feel like a big deal to many listeners, possibly. But she really needed it. The poor lady was heartbroken. It's a support animal. And the folks who were in the area, Torbay Estates, who day after day were trying to look for that cat to help Mona out, good for you, I'd say. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. And we will indeed pick up this conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.